So, it's all uphill from here, as Haku manages to recover. Kamaji is glad to see that Haku is alright. I heard Sen's voice call my name. She called me back home again. It sparks like a fire, a flame that still burns. Yeah, it's here. This is where... I'm getting distracted. Haku describes hearing Chihiro's voice, leading him to recovery. Kamaji once again acknowledges it's true love. Kamaji once again acknowledges it was all pure love. Pure love broke Zeniba's spell. Aye, love is able to lift any curse, mind you. Love is the cure for all curses. Again, love doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, after all. Now, when it comes to romance, Hayao Miyazaki's had a very interesting approach. We're so used to love at first sight and the euphoria and people making out, so on and so forth. Miyazaki offers more nuanced forms of romance, in that most of the couples he introduces don't always get together in the way that Hollywood would usually depict. Sometimes in a Miyazaki movie, a romance is implied, but never gets the time to fully blossom. Sometimes, like in Princess Mononoke, the main couple just needs time apart from each other. Miyazaki is indicating that as wonderful as romance is, there are other things worth pursuing, and romance isn't necessarily something we always have to fixate ourselves with. But I'll focus on romance some other time, maybe. Kamaji confirms to Haku that Sen went to Zeniba to save you, Haku. Meanwhile, Zeniba is recovering from, well, being vomited on, and ranting about the costs and damages, even though Sen managed to save everybody from No-Face. Zeniba's still angry with her. And she must be punished. She acknowledges that she's run away, even abandoning her own parents, so she proclaims. She threatens to turn the pigs into bacon. Haku appears. Yubaba is surprised to see that Haku's still alive. Haku, caught up on what happened, tells Yubaba that she's overlooked something. Something dear to her has been replaced. In her indulgences, she overlooked something precious to her. Since when do you talk that way to your master? Yubaba acknowledges. It seems Haku is finally on the verge of quitting his apprenticeship with Yubaba. No longer indulging in power, but instead motivated by love, I would presume. They have a stare-off. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. She seems to have all the gold she needs. Well, maybe not all the gold she needs. She ranted about repairing damages, but still, indulgent baby is annoying her. So she tells him to zip it. What? But Yubaba finds out that this baby is actually the 3 green heads. So if that's not the baby, where's the baby? At the moment of this realization, the gold seems to rot away into dirt. Huh, it's just dirt. So much for all that gold exploiting. The primary focus is Yubaba losing her baby. Yet this very brief scene of the gold rotting away into dirt symbolizes that No-Face had been tricking the customers all the time. And symbolically speaking, it shows the empty impact of greed. That if people keep building up on greed and possessions, then it all crumbles for nothing. All that gold, all that greedy indulgence, all for nothing. All the corporation, all the manipulation, all the indulgence, all for nothing. You may recall that I've said before in this video, that evil is such a destructive force that it ultimately destroys itself. Greed is evil, and in this case, greed is such a consuming force it ultimately devours itself. Greed never solves the problem. It never fills that hole inside you. No matter how many riches you'll gain, it'll all be for nothing. You know, I heard this common phrase about the Pharaoh of Egypt, that he spent so much of his time indulging in filling his tomb with gold and all sorts of things like that to prepare him for what the Egyptians perceived as the afterlife. And as a result, all the Pharaoh got was robbed. There is a spiritual nature to all of us. A spiritual nature that was made for more than this material life. That's why no matter how much we indulge in it, materialism never works. Because it never fills that spiritual hole that yearns for meaning, for significance. People obsess over corporation and, oh, the latest PlayStation 5, oh, the makeup. And sure, I would have done that in the past too. But the moment we pass on from this life to the next, all forms of materials are insignificant. We pass on, and we're not taking any of these physical materials with us. That's why, in the long term, materialism and any form of corporation that focuses on greed ultimately fails. And in indulging so much in this form of greed, in this materialism, they've overlooked proper value, like love. The very kind of love that Yubaba had for her baby. The kind of love which she has taken for granted. So where's the baby? Where's my baby?
Oh, she's mad now.
She's flaming angry. Oh, she's fuming now, lads. Haku doesn't stir and just simply remarks that the baby's with her sister, Zeniba. Obviously, the baby needed some time out from all that indulgent comfort zoning. Indulgent comfort zoning? Is that even a term? Yubaba sits down. She says you'll get her baby back. Yubaba says that Haku will get her baby back, but at a price. One last challenge for Chihiro. Haku insists on tearing up Sen's contract, and then send Sen and her parents back to the human world. Fine, Yubaba says, but on one condition. She gets to give Sen one final test. If she fails,
You will belong to me.
Okay, not me. That's kind of gross. To Yubaba, yeah. So the train arrives at the 6th stop. Swamp Bottom. It's a quiet place. The fly had been carrying around the mouse for so long. The fly seems kind of tired. The fly seems tired. So the baby mouse decides to walk. Chihiro invites the baby mouse to ride on her shoulder if he's tired. Chihiro invites the baby mouse to ride on her shoulder if he's tired. But he isn't. It would appear, as he empathized with the tired fly, he took on the responsibility to walk on his own. And in turn, insisted that he can walk on his own now. Just a little character arc to compare with Chihiro. This baby has finally done a bit of growing up. Excellent character growth. They move on. Then they notice something interesting. Honestly, this could have been taken out of the movie, but this is just 100% Miyazaki's imagination at play here. It's a hopping lamppost. The hopping lamppost politely bows towards Chihiro and No-Face before lighting the way and hopping forwards. Yeah, so many people just wish they could have Miyazaki's imagination, eh? The hopping lamppost leads them to Zeniba's house. The lamppost is laid to rest up there. The lamppost is laid to rest as Chihiro and her friends come to the house. Compared to the bathhouse, it's a significantly quiet cottage, where Zeniba apparently grows her own food, taking on responsibility. It would appear there's a sharp contrast between Zeniba and her sister. Whereas Yubaba would indulge in riches and consumerism, Zeniba instead insists on responsibility in growing her own food rather than having it be fed to her. The benefits of a humble farming life really makes you a wholesome person. And as we'll see later, Zeniba is depicted as quite empathetic towards others. Or at the very least, more empathetic than her sister. I mean, she is still a witch who's capable of powerful magic, capable of killing people. After all, she is still a witch with the capacity to kill people with her powerful magic. In contrast to Yubaba forcing Chihiro in when she first did the job, Zeniba has a more welcoming come-in, where she allows the people outside to come in at their own will. They are not tools to be used. They are people with their own dignified choice. The choice on whether they want to come in or not, rather than a tool for indulgence. They all made it to Zeniba's home, and Zeniba will make some tea. Chihiro returns the golden slab to Zeniba. Chihiro returns the golden seal to Zeniba. She takes it and asks Chihiro if she has any idea what this is. She responds it's the golden seal she was looking for. She apologizes on Haku's behalf. Aw, No Face bowed too. Zeniba notices that the protective spell on the seal is gone. Must be referring to the black slug that was on the seal. Chihiro confesses she squashed it. Zeniba laughs in response, because that wasn't her slug. Zeniba placed the black slug into Haku so she could control him. And she's laughing because Chihiro squashed it. She also notes that what happened to her spell, that only love could break it. She asks if the baby and the spy could turn back into their normal forms. She acknowledges that the spell on those two wore off long ago. She asks if they want to change back, but they seem quite happy in their forms that they are. So they happily help out with sewing. Maybe there could be some speculation as to whether that mouse was originally a baby, or if the baby was originally a mouse. This thought has only just come to mind. And vice versa for the fly, that the fly used to be a fly, but then became the spy bird, or the spy bird became a fly. Although, however you perceive it, it's implied that whilst they were in their forms that served Yubaba, they were indulging. And yet, being put into the forms of a mouse and a fly respectively, have humbled them to encourage them to change. Hence why they prefer those forms. Humility has a way of transforming people on the inside out. As Chihiro, No Face, and Zeniba talk over cheese and tea, several things are noteworthy here. Firstly, Zeniba's talking about her relationship with her sister Yubaba, and the fact that they don't get along very well. Secondly, notice how significantly calm No Face is as he's sipping the tea and quietly eating the cheese. This is a deep contrast compared to the indulgent monster he was back in the bathhouse. Here, I want to give a full analysis of No Face, because many people have caught on to the fact that No Face is a being who becomes what his environment indulges in. He is a being who becomes what the environment reflects. So, if the environment involves selfish indulgence and greed, like the bathhouse, he becomes a ravenous monster to appropriately reflect as such. However, when he's in a place of calmness, with polite, humble people, in complete contrast, however, when No Face is in an environment of calm and productive company, he reflects that same calmness. In fact, perhaps the bathhouse puts some added pressure to this lonely figure. After all, the indulgent consumerism does pressure people into being these monsters that they probably don't desire to be deep down inside. Our real personhoods come from being humble, not from desperately trying to appeal to the masses. Miyazaki himself has stated that he's based No Face off his own characteristics. I'll let you figure that out as you will. So, full analysis of No Face goes as follows. No Face is a lonely stranger in a strange land. Chihiro is kind to him. That kindness gives him motivation and meaning to fill in the hole of loneliness. He tries appealing to Chihiro to make her family, but it doesn't quite work in the way he approaches. So he resolves to more greedy methods. He indulges in the very greed that the bathhouse embraces. He tries filling in that hole of loneliness so desperately it makes him a ravenous monster. He indulges even further when Chihiro refuses him again. But no matter how much he consumes, he's never made whole. Chihiro makes him vomit out all that consumerism he'd been embracing, because indulging in all that greed is unhealthy. In this place, however, his better side is endorsed. He is more wholesome, calm, at peace. And his character comes full circle when he decides to stay with Zeniba. Going back to the conversation at hand, Zeniba notes that she and Yubaba are twin sisters, yet exact opposites. She apologizes that her sister turned her parents into pigs. She apologizes to Chihiro that Yubaba turned her parents into pigs. She notes that Chihiro will have to help Haku and her parents on her own. Use what she remembers about them. Chihiro asks for more of a hint. She has an inkling. She has this feeling that she's met Haku a long time ago. That's a good start, Zeniba acknowledges.
Once you've met someone, you never really forget them.
What Zeniba just said there, once you've met someone, you never really forget them, is very significant to the themes of identity in this movie. Once you've met someone, you never really forget them. Now, of course, many will come along with objections of, aha, amnesia! And to be fair, even this film implies that, with the whole thing about lost memories. And especially if you lose your identity when indulging in corporate greed, instead of embracing your real self in humility, empathy, and responsibility. All of us are likely to encounter many faces in our lives. Even if someone doesn't appear too often in our lives, they are significant in some way. Perhaps if we thought hard enough, we would recall every single face we saw even ever since we were babies. Zeniba even says it just takes a while for your memories to return. Zeniba says she's going to make something with her friends, and she wants Chihiro to call her Granny from now on. Something's just occurred to me. The whole implication about names. When Chihiro met Yubaba, Yubaba took control of Chihiro's name as property and renamed Chihiro Sen, a number, treating her as property. However, as questionable as Zeniba is, she does show better traits than her sister. Mainly because she doesn't indulge in greed, which is the core trace of evil according to this movie. Especially when looked through the lenses of Shintoism. In direct comparison to Yubaba, Zeniba also offers a new name, except this time she doesn't offer this new name to Chihiro in order to treat her as an object, but instead uses the new name on herself in a loving suggestion, Granny. Now, of course, it's pretty easy for many of the young generation to mockingly call any old people Granny or Grandpa. I mean, come on, that's pretty easy to do, right? Even Shia LaBeouf did it to Harrison Ford, even though he was probably in his 60s. But here, we begin to see how names can be used in a loving manner. There was a good reason I said beforehand it's all uphill from here after the train scene. The moment the train scene starts, everything begins to heal. Names are no longer used in a hostile, consumering way, but are used in a loving way. Memories come flooding back, and everyone gets what they deserve. The music is even uplifting for this part, even kind of heartwarming. As the more uplifting major music plays, Zeniba notes that No Face is actually pretty good at threading. Chihiro is still a bit worried. Chihiro can't remember anything. She fears for Haku's well-being, and that her parents could be eaten already. Zeniba gives her this special braid to tie back her hair with. She says this braid will protect her. She places this gift on her head right on time, as a new person arrives just outside the door. Let him in? Funnily enough, we never see this guest actually come into the house. Anyway, she opens the door to see Haku! 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 Yay! She gets to ride the luck dragon from Neverending Story! Is this another iconic image or what? That's love for you, Zeniba remarks. Now, of course, I wouldn't be surprised if some of you were thinking, this romance wasn't that well developed. But you need to understand, love isn't just, ooh, they look pretty, kissy, kissy, kissy. Love would be just so embarrassingly flat it was just restricted to that. Love is also about empathy and looking out for one another. Zeniba forgives Haku for stealing her seal, but in return, Haku must take care of Chihiro. Zeniba tells the baby mouse and the fly to go home now. Come back soon.
Choo, choo.
It's so cute! No Face's character arc is complete when Zeniba asks him to stay with her. No Face gladly agrees. Chihiro says goodbye to Zeniba. Oh, excuse me, Granny. Sen tells Zeniba her real name, Chihiro. She remembers her identity, all right. Zeniba says, what a pretty name. You take good care of it. What a contrast! Yubaba said, what a pretty name, and it belongs to me now. But in contrast, Zeniba says, what a pretty name, you take good care of it. One sister is more selfish, the other is more selfless. Bye-bye, Granny. Up, up, and away. Bye, have a great time. Even the lamppost is waving by. Never-ending story. Oh, sorry, wrong movie. Once again, flight takes hold here, but this time, flight is associated with our main protagonist, and Haku. Flight represents freedom. Previously, that kind of freedom belonged to Yubaba, but now the skies are for Chihiro and Haku and her friends to explore, to soar through. To fly is to be free, and being free in this context is a revelation. Speaking of revelations, something occurs to Chihiro, and the music becomes appropriately mysterious for this brief moment. Chihiro thinks back again to a time, a memory, a reaching hand, a submersion in water. Chihiro recalls something, and she wants to tell Haku about it. She remembered something from a long time ago, and it will help Haku. We see the train once again. Perhaps the train represents another form of freedom. The train is often a motif for freedom, as well as personifies the quality of ma, which Miyazaki uses. And freedom will come in full form once Chihiro liberates Haku. Chihiro recalls one time when she dropped her shoe into a river. She was little when she dropped her shoe into the river. She tried to reach her shoe, but she fell in. She thought she drowned, but the river carried her to shore. And so it's finally occurred to her. The name of the river was the Kohaku River. She thinks that was him, and Haku's real name is the Kohaku River. Haku is the spirit of the Kohaku River. Chihiro is correct. Haku transforms into his other form. The way he does so involves a method akin to shattering glass and crystal, as if to say Haku is finally broken free of his amnesiac state. Chihiro and Haku free fall with their friends. They hold hands. Haku declares, "You did it, Chihiro." He remembers that he was the spirit of the Kohaku River now. He remembers now that he was the spirit of the Kohaku River. As joyful as this occasion is, there's something bittersweet about this revelation. Chihiro notes that people filled in the Kohaku River, and it's all apartments now. That must be why Haku can't find his way home. Though he gladly remembers Chihiro and her little pink shoe. So it turns out Haku saved her at that time. She knew deep down inside he was good. That explains the bond. That explains the love. And again, there's somewhat of a subtle environmental message here, because at central play here is a revelation of memories recovered, but in the backdrop to serve that revelation is an environmental message. More profound, which would make more sense when looked through the lens of Shintoism. The spirit of the Kohaku River can't find his way home because man has filled that river with apartments. Now, whether those apartments were filled in for the greater good or for the evil of corporate greed is up for interpretation. So there's a tragic element to this revelation. Haku can't find his way home. Men have ruined the environment. But at least he remembered who he is now. With that revelation, the themes of identity come full circle, and just before they land in the water, Haku and Chihiro fly up, soaring to freedom, if you could call it that. Here we get the last act of this film. Chihiro and Haku and their friends return to the bathhouse, where all the staff and Zeniba, where Yubaba and all the staff eagerly awaits them. Yubaba reunites with her baby, transformed back into a baby. And she notices that the baby is standing independently now. It seemed that the baby went through some necessary growth. When Yubaba talks back against Haku, the baby talks back against her own mother, much to Yubaba's surprise, much to Yubaba's shock. The baby's even standing up for his new friends. But nevertheless, Yubaba takes Chihiro for one final test. Her final test is to take a look at the pigs that have been gathered here, and tell Yubaba which two of these pigs are her parents. Once you've met someone, you never really forget them. Does Chihiro remember her parents, even in their pig-like form? Even when they're in the form of swine? She gets one try. If she gets it right, they all go home. Chihiro looks and notices...
There must be a mistake. None of these pigs are my mom or dad.
None of them? Is that really your answer?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you got it!
None of the pigs were her parents. Chihiro succeeded. She's free. The contract had been destroyed. She's free. And everyone celebrates. Well, everyone except for Yubaba, of course. Even the radish spirit. She thanks everybody. Yubaba says, "All right, get out of my sight." Chihiro says, "Thanks, Granny." Chihiro says, "Thanks for everything, Granny." Yubaba's a bit baffled by the title Granny. But I guess that's Chihiro's form of kindness, after Yubaba mistreated her for so long. Chihiro and Haku hold hands for the last time as they head off. Haku notes that when Chihiro passed the test, the humans awoke in the human side of the river. Haku notes that when Chihiro succeeded the test, her parents awoke at the human side of the river. So it's not just the tunnel, specifically the river. The water is now gone, and the entire environment reverts back to the state in which Chihiro and her parents originally found it. Chihiro can walk across now. Sadly, Haku can go no further. Haku says Chihiro will be fine, as long as she promises not to look back. This brings the themes of reflection and dependence into full circle, because at the beginning of the film, Chihiro was looking back at the tunnel she was coming from, and now here, she's encouraged to look to the future and not look back. Haku says not to worry about him. He'll have a talk with Yubaba. He'll acquit being her apprentice, and everything will be fine since he got his name back thanks to Chihiro. Chihiro asks if they will ever meet again. Haku acknowledges they will, and he makes that a promise. Now go and don't look back. The touch departs. Chihiro moves on to the next phase of her life. Her parents, now back in human form, ask her where they've been. They need to move on. Her parents are completely fine, as if they don't even remember any of their time turned into pigs. Chihiro almost looks back. Almost. But remembers the promise she made. And goes back through the tunnel. They emerge through the tunnel the way they came in. Chihiro's clinging onto her mother. Now, previously, she was clinging as a means of dependency. But here she clings on again. Maybe people will perceive this as a negative character growth. But perhaps it could be thematically appropriate to suggest that Chihiro is clinging onto her parents as a form of love now. Not as a form of dependence. because she's missed her parents for so long. Yet apparently, in spite of everything, it seems that some time has passed, as the nature seems to have almost completely overgrown on the car. The path was originally quite clear, and now it's covered in grass as well. And the car is covered in leaves, though it seems not too much time has passed by. The father acknowledges that it's all dusty inside the car too. Not to mention, it's implied that Chihiro still has that special braid that Zeniba gave to her. So, no one may believe Chihiro's coming-of-age story of how she entered the spirit world and changed for the better. But what's important is that the experience profoundly changed her to become a more wholesome person. And for once she agrees with her parents that everything will be okay now. No more clinging on to the past. No more indulging. It's time to move forward to an uncertain, yet hopeful future. Chihiro closes off the film with the line,
I think I can handle it.
Cue the end theme, and the beautiful backdrops.